Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living, and thank you all for coming out today. I like to start off the year, each year, with a series I used to call Back to Basics, but the idea is that we go back and look at some of the basic tenets, the principles upon which our philosophy, our theology is based. And so we take this first part of the year to do that. I remember one year I got the brilliant idea to do the 10 core concepts that we used to teach in foundations class and do one a week. And I realized it was the middle of March and I was still doing back to basics, and that didn't work so well. The title of my talk today is, Where's the Operator's Manual? And the three basic points that I'm going to talk about today, first of all, our philosophy can be looked at as an operator's manual for life. Number two, what's in this operator's manual? And number three, how do we go about using it? Number one, our philosophy can be looked at as an operator's manual. It is like we have been given this magnificent computer. This is the most powerful computer you can imagine. And it's lightning quick. It has unlimited memory, unlimited capacity. And yet, we only use it as a calculator. Or maybe use it as a typewriter. Oh, I see there are some that don't know what a typewriter is. Or a word processor. A word processor without spell check. Even though we have this huge capacity, we're only using a tiny fraction of it. And that is what it is like. And what we have in our philosophy and our worldview and how we look at the world and what we can do is a way to use a lot more of this inherent computer that is within each one of us. Our philosophy is like an operating manual for this computer that we have. This philosophy opens new ways to look at the world, and it opens possibilities and programs that we haven't even thought of yet. If we use this manual, we can broaden our lives exponentially. We can use it to improve our health. We can use it to improve our relationships, wherever they are, at work or at home, in the family. Romantic relationships. We can use it to improve our sense of prosperity and abundance. We can help it with our creative expressions. There's an unlimited way that we can use this philosophy to make our lives more profound and more meaningful. So this philosophy is our operator's manual to life. So what is in this operator's manual? I think that it has 4 components. It's like a 3-legged milk stool. It has, one is the physical part of life. Then there is the mental part of life. There's a 3rd leg of this milk stool that is the spiritual part. And then the seat of the milk stool, the 4th point, is that point where these all come together and how they tie together to support us. First of all, the physical world. We do a great job with that. I think that when aliens from other planets come and visit this realm that we're in, the thing that they are most impressed with is the ability that we have had to look at and analyze our surroundings. We do a great job of that. I mean, we have this periodic table of the elements. We've looked at everything in this whole planet and assigned a number to it and put it in this fantastic chart. There were 92 of them when I was in school. I looked last night just to make sure I wasn't outdated, and there's 118 today. But But we've looked at and categorized everything. And then we've put calipers on it. We can measure everything. We've got microscopes today that can look clear down in, and we can look at subatomic particles. We can look at electrons and even smaller subatomic particles. And yet we can then look at the cosmos, and we can go out and out and out, and we can look back in time hundreds of millions of years. And we can look at the expanse of the cosmos, things that are all those hundreds of millions of light years away. And we can do all of that in this physical world in which we live. We do a great job of that. Then there's the mental world. The physical world is all visible. It's all things that we can see, so we can put those incredible calipers on it. The mental world is invisible. It's things like ideas and thoughts. You can't put calipers on an idea. You can't put calipers on a feeling. So there's this mental side of what we do. These are things like creativity and thoughts. They can come into subjective things like beauty and truth and joy. But you can't measure those things. Thirdly, there is then the spiritual realm. And in the spiritual realm, I'm talking about our awareness of a connection to a higher power. Awareness of a connection to a higher power. Ever since cavemen crawled out of the primeval ooze, he has had an appreciation for nature and for the world in which we live, this planet, and in that there is an inherent connection to something that is greater than we are. Early man worshipped the sun and the moon and the wind, the stars. He worshipped those things over which he had no control, and he had fear of hurricanes and winds and earthquakes, things that he didn't have a concept of. And so he prayed to the elements. But it is in that prayer and in that fear that he had a connection and awareness of something greater. Something greater than himself, something greater than what it is. And I think that in some ways early man had a higher sense of spirituality, a higher sense of a connection to Spirit God than we do today. I'm reminded of a time a few years ago. Ann and I invited a young lady up to our cabin. It was the middle of winter, and we got all moved in, the first night, and then the temperature dropped. And it was like 25 below, and we had this really great meal, and we decided we were going to go out afterwards, burn off a few of those calories with a snowshoe hike. And so we put on our snowshoes and we tromped out through the Alaskan wilderness, and we went back down to our tool shed and looped around, and we came out in this thing we call Hammer Lake. It's down below our cabin. It was just beautiful. It was either no moon or a very, very small moon, or I'm not sure, maybe the moon hadn't even come up yet, but we came out as we went through Hammer Lake. We could look back up the hill and see our cabin at the top of the hill, and the propane lights glowing through the windows, and it's that, kind of an amber, warm light, and you could just feel the warmth of the cabin in the crisp, cold night. And as we walked through Hammer Lake, this young lady was just taken with the beauty. And I realized that even though she'd lived in Alaska for a long time, she'd never been out in the wilderness away from light in the winter. The only time she'd ever been out in the great alone was summer, when we have light all night. And she had never really sensed the night sky. She was from a big city in the lower 48 where they had enough light pollution that no matter when, she had never seen the night sky before. And she was constantly looking up and managed to trip on her snowshoes going through Hammer Lake and fell down. And all three of us just laid there looking up at the Milky Way stretched across, with Mount McKinley towering above us from the north and the west, and we just looked at that beautiful, magnificent night sky. And she said, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And it was that numinous moment. Numinous, meaning an awareness of our connection to God. And in that beauty of that crisp, cold Alaska night, you could not help but feel a connection to God. And that is what early man felt. And that is that sense of connection to a higher power. And then the fourth point is the connection of all of these things together. It is the connection of how we can use our mental side of it, our minds, to think and to know, to affect the physical, to enhance our own enjoyment of life. We can cut down trees and we can plane them and we can make boards and we can build a shelter. We use our minds, the mental aspect of it, to improve the physical. But we can do even better when we can step into that spiritual realm and use that as well. The science of mind is amazing. The science of mind is comparatively new, but the mental experience of the invisible universe is as old as the history of mankind. It is new, and that for the first time in history, we have put together all findings which contribute to the establishment of humankind's relationship with the universe, to the end that we may be able to apply our spiritual understanding to the everyday problems of human life. The key phrase in there is we are able to apply our spiritual understanding to the everyday problems of human life. And that's what this center is all about. When you come to classes, when you come on Sunday, you're given an idea of how to use these principles and apply them in your everyday life. Ernest Holmes never claimed to have came up with any of these ideas. He did not have a James Earl Jones voice booming from the sky. He didn't get a burning bush. He didn't get any of that. But he was an inverted reader. He loved to read. He loved to study. And he took a lot of this golden thread, the common truths, and he compiled them together into this philosophy. The science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. It is rather the culmination of all revelations. We take the good wherever we can find it, making it our own as far as we understand it. The realization that good is universal and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate in their life is theirs to use, is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. And this is why we study this. This is how we do that. Our third point is how do we use this operator's manual? How do we go about using it? I have three key principles. These are the truths that our philosophy is based upon. And I'm going to only touch on three today so we can get the kids out of here and relieve the Sunday school teachers. Three things I'm going to talk about today. One is the infinite intelligence, or God, Spirit, whatever name you choose to assign to that creative force of the universe, that infinite intelligence is all there is. Number two, that this infinite intelligence is for us. It's not against us. It's constantly and continually for us. And the third point, our thoughts are creative. First of all, this infinite intelligence is all there is. Once again, Ernest Holmes, and you notice that I quote Ernest Holmes a lot. I could go back and quote Plotinus, the Tao. I could quote Meister Eckhart. These are all of the places where Ernest picked his ideas, from Ralph Waldo Emerson, from Mary Baker Eddy, and of course Judge Thomas Troward. Ernest Holmes said, the science of mind is built on the theory that there is one infinite mind which of necessity includes all there is. And this is the key idea. There is not a God, an infinite mind, a creative force, and an anti-force, something that is out there that is against that. There is not a God and a devil. There is only a God and a place where there is less God. There is only a place where there is God, where there is an infinite intelligence, and a place where there is unawareness, where there is no awareness of a higher power, no awareness. But there isn't a red thing with horns and a tail that carries a pitchfork that's going to stab you if you make a mistake. You'll get the results of poor decisions right away. The universe, God, Spirit does that, but naturally by what happens to us. But there is only one infinite intelligence, and it is operating at this and in every moment always. Number two, this infinite intelligence is for us. It's for us and not against us. Once again, Ernest Holmes. This science necessarily starts with the proposition that we're living in a spiritual universe whose sole government is one of harmony. And you could add on that whose sole government is one of harmony, is love, peace, joy, abundance, prosperity. Our natural state is not one of lack and limitation. It is not one of dis-ease. It is not one of fear or separation. We don't deny that these exist, but it is not our natural state. And that this infinite intelligence is for us. It just makes sense to me. If we have been created, if we are an expression of the Most High, if whatever it is that we are, it doesn't make sense that however we got here did so to punish us or to torture us or to make our existence miserable. Why would anything do that? It just doesn't make any sense. It is for us. Now, it doesn't deny that we don't do things which make our own lives pretty damn miserable. And we can do that. We can choose bondage over freedom. We may not be aware that we're doing it, but we can do that. And we do. But the beauty of this philosophy is that we can rethink it. And we can do it again. Which leads into the third point, and that is that our thoughts are creative. This is a long quote, but it's important. You must approach it. Now here he's talking about the science of mind, our philosophy. You must approach it with understanding. Above all, you must approach it with the definite intention in mind of making conscious use of its principles. You must come to realize that mind exists as a principle of the universe, just as electricity exists as a principle. And I've used this before many times, but Moses, when he led the Hebrews out of Egypt, was not aware of electricity. It does not mean that electricity did not exist, but he was not aware of it. It wasn't until Benjamin Franklin and we became aware of electricity and that we could harness it and use it for our own good. But it has been there all along. You must come to realize that mind exists as a principle in the universe, just as electricity exists as a principle. And so in this center, what we do is we try to teach you. We don't try to turn everybody into electrical engineers. All we're hoping to do is show you where the light switch is. And all you have to do is lift it, and the lights can come on. He continues, once you understand this, it will not be difficult to see that thought is the tool of mind. Nor will it be difficult to see that physical objects are fundamentally spiritual in their nature. That an objective fact is but a symbol of a subjective or invisible cause. It certainly follows that if you are to make practical use of the science of mind, you must be able to convert things into thoughts, and by changing the stream of consciousness to produce a corresponding change in an objective situation, whether this be used for helping those who are sick or to meet any other need. So it's thoughts become things, and things can be understood by thoughts. And once we understand that our thoughts are creative, we can change conditions. We can change how we look at the world. There's a story that illustrates this. Better be brief. And I don't know the truth of this story, honestly, but it illustrates the point, I think, very well. It is reported that there were 3 gentlemen, and they all died at the same time. And they all arrived at the pearly gates with St. Peter at exactly the same time. And they arrived there, and St. Peter looked down at his list, and he says, "Oh my goodness, your rooms aren't ready yet. I don't know for sure what I'm going to do." He wasn't prepared for these 3 guys. And he looked down, and one of them was a Baptist, another one was a Catholic, and the third one was a religious scientist. So St. Peter thought for a bit what he might be able to do, and so he called Satan and he said, "Hey, could you take care of these guys for a little while I get their rooms ready?" And Satan reluctantly agreed to take these guys for a little while. So he sent them on down to be with Satan while he was getting their rooms ready. It was just a short amount of time later, and oh boy, Satan was on the phone. And Satan said, "Deal's off. Well, we can't do this. You got to come and get these guys. They are driving this place crazy." I says, "What do you mean?" St. Peter said, "What's wrong?" He says, "Well, first of all, that Baptist is running around and he's saved everybody. The Catholic, he run around and he's already forgiven everybody. And that religious scientist, he's already raised enough money to install air conditioning."
That one's good.
Our thoughts are creative. As a takeaway, I will leave you with one thought, and this is another Ernest Holmes quote. "The science of mind is the correlation of the opinions of philosophy, the revelations of religion, and the laws of science applied to the needs and aspirations of people today." So I hope you'll join us for the next few weeks as we look at some more of the principles of science of mind, and we look at how we can apply these in our daily lives. And so it is with this awareness of that presence, that infinite presence that is within each and every one of us at every moment, that I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in surrounding the congregation with love. And just knowing the simple truth that God is indeed all there is, that infinite intelligence is operating through, around, and as each and every one of us, and that infinite intelligence is greater than any condition, and that infinite intelligence is within us, that we have the ability to overcome any situation. So I speak my word now for those who are in a situation where they are experiencing lack and limitation, where there is not enough. We just simply know the spiritual truth, and that is that we live in an infinite universe. We live in an abundant and prosperous universe. And so for those individuals, I just claim and accept all of the abundance, all of the good, all of the God in the universe. For those who are experiencing health challenges, we just simply know that in the spiritual realm there exists a prototype for that individual that is absolutely perfect and whole and complete. And it is that spiritual prototype, that blueprint of perfection that I embrace in this moment. We just allow that perfection to flow into each person experiencing health challenges. And lastly, I speak my word for each individual who's experiencing separation, relationship conditions that are less than love. We just simply know that whatever the situation, whether it be work relationships, whether it be home relationships, family relationships, romantic relationships, makes no difference because it is all the activity of God. For we know that that infinite intelligence, more than anything else, is an intelligence of love. A creative force of love. And it is that love that we allow to flow through, to, and as each and every one of us. And so now we just give thanks. We give thanks for our awareness of the presence of God within ourselves. And now we just let that goodness flow to us. We let it go. We let it be. And so it is.
So it is.